I think it's safe to say that it would be difficult to find two individuals who know more about local marketing than our guests today. Joining us are Gordon Borrell, Chief Executive Officer of Borrell Associates, one of the media industry's leading analysts, and ranked in the top 2% among Gerson Lehrman's 150,000 consultants worldwide. In other words, he knows a little bit about how media works. And Dan Mason, President and Chief Executive Officer of CBS Radio, a veteran of radio. He knows a little bit about radio. Welcome and thanks for your time, guys. I know you're really busy.
Thank you for having us.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about radio and digital marketing, and from the radio perspective. First question is, do you think that more businesses are embracing local marketing today, and if so, why?
I think absolutely you're seeing a much, much stronger embrace of local marketing than you've seen in the past. And I think digital, the internet, has something to do with that. That's probably the most measurable medium, or it comes with an awful lot of measurements, whether it's page views, unique visitors, or clicks, or things like that. And this has, local marketers have always marketed locally, but then what you've got now is the national advertisers saying, wow, we can come into an individual market and not only target maybe by radio stations or clusters or genres or newspapers in that local market, but we can also target by other individual segments, or maybe go through those media and drive into the internet and actually pick up some more demos or some more statistics from those folks. So they got at their disposal a measurable medium that says, well, we can drop a coupon for Heinz in a marketplace and actually see immediate downloads and immediate sign-ups for certain deals and things like that. So it's just given them a better opportunity to see the effect of their traditional advertising in the marketplace. It allows them to go in and do some local push of products.
Let's just talk about radio for a second. And Dan, as the radio expert here, how do you respond to people that say radio is dead or an old medium?
Most of the time when we defend that, it's from people who write blogs. It's not people who live on Main Street.
Right.
Because people who live on Main Street have a different idea. They get traffic information, they get weather information. They depend on radio in time of crisis. And that camp of those who say that radio is dead, usually they have a technology dog in the race to promote. So, but we don't fight that as much as we used to a couple of years ago. I think with enough natural disasters that come along, you get the message that radio is such a backbone of the local community. So I don't really think that that's something that we have to defend, maybe with the vigor that we did 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Gordon, you said once that radio does a better job at driving internet traffic than the internet itself. What do you mean by that?
Well, in relation to what Dan was saying regarding radio not being dead, what we are seeing is that people will often predict the death of something when they see it decline and decline. They predict the death of radio in the 50s when television came along. That never happened. They're predicting the death of Yellow Pages books and newspapers. History shows that probably won't happen. So when you take a look at traditional media and its role, it's extremely, extremely powerful. All traditional media, outside the internet, let's say, extremely powerful in telling people about what's going on, creating a real sense of community, and driving people to actually do something. And then you have the internet. And the internet is a way where people are driven by maybe a message in traditional media to come down to this level and to do something, look up something, research something, download a coupon, whatever. And you look at all media and their ability to drive traffic. Newspapers do a decent job. Television does a really good job. And radio is number one in driving traffic. You look at any radio campaign, and then you measure the results, say, on website traffic or downloads or whatever the campaign was designed to do to drive something to some type of action on the internet. And you just see phenomenally, it's 30–40% more traffic than you would get from a similar campaign, an advertisement in the newspaper, or even an advertisement, say, a banner ad on the web.
Let's talk a little bit about the content of radio and how content is evolving in radio. Radio is a great medium for storytelling, engagement. It's also single channel use in most cases. Dan, how do you think content is evolving in radio?
Well, first of all, let's go back and look at why people listen to the radio.
Okay.
And if you do a Google search on this, and you'll see things pop up from the 1930s, even that far back, that people don't listen necessarily for music. They don't listen for news or information or weather or sports. They listen for companionship.
Wow.
And this has been proven time and time again that the radio station is a friend. And there's a natural relationship between the listener and the radio station. And if you think about what could happen beyond that, whether it's commercials, whether it's content, if you have that strong attraction between two, then radio is a perfect for a one-to-all medium that radio is, one source broadcasting to all. To think of the power of what could be done with a one-to-one medium, with internet, mobile, with this one-to-all medium, you become a new hybrid, and it's a much bigger platform than either on its own could ever be. And you do that through radio content.
How does digital marketing or digital media work best in local markets, would you say? We touched upon that a little bit earlier.
Again, I think it's hand in glove. We do see this this divorce of digital from traditional media, and there are these internet pure play companies out there, quite a few of them, Yodel and Marchex and Reach Local, and they sell SEO and they sell search engine optimization and reputation management, and they resell banner ads and things like that. But for the most part, what we see is, and I think this is a really, really good thing, and CBS is definitely doing this, is sort of the transformation of salespeople from salespeople to marketing consultants. And again, I think it's a really good thing. It's embodied in the story that a sales trainer tells. I don't know if it's true, but it's a great story. And he said he goes to, he's selling radio advertising way back when, and went to Bob's hardware store. And Bob said, "Don't come back. That flight of commercials that you sold me a couple weeks ago never did anything at all. Radio doesn't work." And he said, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I feel so bad about that. I'm going to do a whole nother flight of commercials, same time, and I'm going to pay for them myself. One condition: I get to say what those commercials say." And I said, "Okay. Well, what will they say?" And he said, "They're going to say, come down to Bob's Hardware all week for a free $20 bill." And the guy said, No, we're not going to do that. And in saying that, he admitted that radio does work. So we do see, I think, what's happening now with these sales reps is you can't just go out and sell radio commercial. You have to engage with the customers. Say, you know what, I can kind of consult with you. I can tell you what works. We have radio at our disposal, or maybe newspaper, or maybe television station spots. But we also kind of know what works. This spot that you're putting up there with your kid in the commercial in a bathtub trying to sell, bathroom supplies or something like that, or, plumbing supplies is not going to work. You really need to do something different. So I do see some greater level of engagement by media companies to consult with or help these poor, confused SMBs, which are just being besieged by salespeople. The number of sales channels have increased 33% in the past 15 to 20 years. So there are more opportunities for them, whether it's more cable channels or more internet channels, more radio channels, or whatever. And the number of sales calls has doubled in the past 2 years. So now the poor SMB, small business, is getting twice as many sales calls per week than they got just a couple of years ago.
And that's a combination of radio and digital marketing working together in these local markets, because we can target people more effectively.
Oh yeah. Targeting is done very, very well in combination, particularly with radio, when you've got music genres, hip hop, contemporary, etc., and then getting them over to the internet to take some type of action that can be provable to the advertiser.
One thing.
Please.
I asked Gordon one time. I said, "Gordon, tell me the most effective use of radio promotion with digital that you'd ever seen." And it's really interesting that sometimes, we talk about this digital business, which is a business that we've had to learn from the ground up. We're a radio company. it's a lot of heavy lifting to learn this business and not pour like a fire hose of money into something that you might get a return on 50 years from now.
Right.
But in that spirit, I asked Gordon, I said, tell me what this was. And you talked about the LASIK promotion. It would be useful, I think, to the audience to hear the story about that.
That is a great promotion. There's a LASIK surgeon, I can't remember what market it was, but the station worked with them, and radio does a really, really good job of this. They're just so good on promotions, and this is why I'm bald, and that is I just tear my hair out trying to work with radio because they have such power. If they would just take that power, put it together with some type of digital product. This was a great example of one station that did it. They went to a LASIK surgeon and created a program where the announcer in the morning got free LASIK surgery, got on the air, talked about how wonderful it was, and now they could see everything. And by the way, if you would like to get free LASIK surgery, just text LASIK, that's LASIK, to 88588, whatever it is. And all week long, they talked about how great LASIK surgery was and that you could get free LASIK surgery if you texted this word in to enter this contest. They had 500 entries. They didn't have thousands, they had 500. So it wasn't a whole lot. But guess what every single one of those entries was interested in? LASIK surgery. So it was, you wouldn't enter that contest unless you really wanted it. Maybe you wanted it for somebody else, so you were somewhat qualified for it. They gave away one, and they had, the rest, 499 qualified leads. The surgeon went in and through their marketing department contacted every single one of them and started closing, 5, 10, 15, 20% of the calls that they made. It was a terrific program. The LASIK surgeon wanted to do it every week. So it was just a great example of how the station could put its head together with everything it had at its disposal. The morning show, the power of radio and the reach of it, and then this ability to collect responses over here and administer the contest. It was a terrific program.
It's a great, concise example of how the two mediums work together hand in hand. I think when digital started becoming popular and local advertisers were like, well, where do I spend my money? It was an either-or situation, right? I mean, it was I'm going to put my money in digital or I'm going to put my money in radio, and now the two are intertwined, and that is a perfect success story.
Well, the takeaway for me in all this was that, we really don't have to recreate the wheel. This is what we do every day. Engagement of an audience with profile personalities. So how simple is this? And he's right. It's the simple ideas that work the best.
Gordon, what are the biggest marketing mistakes that you think that these small business owners are making together today? Do you think it's not thinking about the digital aspect or not using radio to its fullest? I mean, are there any things that come to mind?
Yeah, we do talk with tens of thousands of them and are in front of maybe a few hundred every year, and I do get to talk to them, and it's just really enlightening. You feel sorry for them and you really want to help them. And the biggest mistake that they make is thinking they know a lot about advertising and making their own decisions. And they just don't have enough education. They're too busy making pizzas, cleaning clothes, manning the cash register. And so what they really wind up doing is just making some gut reaction based on a media that they watch or listen to or read. And it doesn't tend to be a really good decision. They really need to rely on a qualified marketing consultant of some sort. Most of them can't afford an ad agency, and what they'll do is, they're kind of flighty. They don't have a lot of money to spend. A typical SMB might spend, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 a year. Not a huge amount. And they can't afford to gamble on it, so they're really reticent to sort of change anything. But they'll come in and they'll spend a whole lot of money and it didn't work, and then they'll retrench and they won't spend anything. And somebody's not in there advising them, and working with them in partnership. I think the simplest thing, that I tell them is just to remember two things. It's the message and the frequency. And the message is embodied in that message about Bob's Hardware. If the ad says or the commercial says, come down to Bob's Hardware for a free $100 bill, it's going to work. Well, think about that. If it says Bob's Hardware is the greatest hardware store in town, come on down, nobody's going to show up. So, you have to think of the offer. You have to think of that. And the other is frequency, and that's what most SMBs forget. They want to put, 7 or 8 commercials in morning drive time or on the 6 o'clock news, and they spend a whole bunch of money, and guess what? Nothing happens. They have to have that frequency because whatever it is they're selling, whether it's pizzas or homes or cars or whatever, people are not in the market at the time that they see that commercial ready to buy. So they have to see it 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and then right at the point they're at the end of the buying funnel when they're ready to pick up the phone or go to the car lot.
What is the best piece of marketing advice you've ever been given?
I think the best piece is the just what I said, the message. Be really careful about the message. There are basically two types of advertising that you do and marketing that you do. One's branding, and that doesn't really often have a direct response. It's just telling people again and again who you are and what type of product that you have. And the other is really direct response. So you have a product to sell at this very moment.
Okay.
And understanding the two, whether you're going to do branding, which most SMBs don't do branding, or they don't really can't afford to do it. They want to do direct response. They want to drive a sales this weekend. So knowing the difference between the two and knowing the power of that one, message, that message has to be clear.
Right.
Most advertisers want to take an ad, let's say it's in the paper, and put 1,000 things in it, or like I said, put their kids in it. And it's just, it's too much. The message has to be really clear, and I think that's the one important marketing message I've learned.
Let's just move to the future now. Where do you see marketing on the radio in the future, or marketing in general in the future, in any medium?
It's an interesting question because a lot of people will see the future kind of myopically, and that is they're looking at what's happening here, and they see certain things declining, and they just take the ruler and they go, well, that's where everything is headed. And if you look historically when a new medium comes along, and it could be, the first electronic medium was radio in the 20s, or the next one was television in the 50s. And then, cable channels began slicing up broadcast TV in the 80s. You can see very discernible trends. And so if you project that into the next 5 years, maybe into 10, beyond that, all bets are off. You don't know what's going to happen. I think what you're beginning to see right now, so let's take the near future first. What you're beginning to see right now is a pendulum swing back to traditional media. A lot of people will laugh at this, but newspapers are probably going to flatten out. They're not going to die. There might be some big market newspapers that die or go to 3 times a week, but they'll probably flatten out. And there are a lot of auto advertisers that are actually coming back to newspapers because they've overspent. They've adjusted their dials too far in favor of digital. So they're coming back to newspapers, a little bit back to radio, somewhat back to TV as well. And we see that across the board. A lot of advertisers are saying, you know what, we call it the John Wanamaker syndrome. John Wanamaker, great retailer, a century ago said half of my advertising works and half of it doesn't. The trouble is I don't know which half is which. And so that's the John Wanamaker syndrome, and every advertiser feels that way all the time. They just distrust what they're spending in advertising. And so that's occurring right now. And guess where it's occurring? It's occurring with digital. Because when they distrust their current advertising, let's say all their traditional advertising a decade ago, they start pushing it into the new medium, and then they put way too much in it, and they begin pulling back. So we see internet advertising flattening. What we see growing is the internet utility purchases, which are enhancements of website hosting, reputation management, search engine optimization, and things like that. That plays very, very nicely with traditional media because, as I said, traditional media, is advertising, and it really drives awareness. As Dan said, it creates a great sense of community, particularly radio. And then when people are ready to act, whether it's downloading a coupon or getting more information, they go to the internet. So it's a great hand-in-glove relationship that we see really enhancing over the next several years.
Great. Dan, you have any guesses? Look in your radio crystal ball.
I think about radio content in the future. So I believe the challenge for us is how do we get all of our platforms measured under one number? For example, 20 years ago, you had a number because everybody listened to the radio. Now, I look at my own day. I wake up and I grab an iPad and I'll listen to our radio stations here in New York on our Your Day app. And I'll do that for a while. When I get to the office, I'll go to radio.com and I'll pull up one of the sports stations. I'm a big Washington Nationals fan, so you know what I was listening to this morning. I was listening to WJFK in Washington. And I'll do that. I might listen to music, I may not, depending on how the day goes. So, and then when you're in your car, you're on the radio. The radio is a captive audience for the car. So, how do we get all these measurement forms to one number? Like you could do that years and years, decades ago. It's harder, and it's when you say radio is dying, radio content is not dying. Having it measured in one place is an uphill challenge for us right now. I'm confident that Arbitron will be able to accomplish this, but radio listening is scattered, but the content is the same.
All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you both for sharing some
Thank
of
you.
your insights about the radio and digital world, and thanks for coming by. This
Great.
was terrific.